Good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Podcast. I'm Nigel Elkes, and today I've got with me our co-host Nigel Elkes. Hi, Nigel.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nikki. Thanks for the invite, as always.
Yeah, Nigel is a regular. We see him at least once a month on here. So today it's very much a succession planning focused day. We are answering the following question. 3 reasons you shouldn't sell your business and 2 reasons why you should. And that's as in, should you go off and sell your business tomorrow? So that's what we're looking at. We've actually got a bonus one in each thought. So it's 3 plus a bonus and 2 plus a bonus because we like to spoil you. So quite a few things to go through. So we're going to start it's not negative because it's, there's positives on both these things. But why, we're going to start off with various reasons why we don't think your particular business, if you fulfill these criteria, why it's not the right time for you to sell. Afterwards, we'll also go through the 3 why it might be the right time. So, Nigel, do you want to kick off and talk about the first reason why we think a business may not be the right time for them to sell?
Yeah, I think obviously we get a lot of inquiries, and the first port of call is really to see, understand the business owner or the business owners and their motivation for sale. And I think the first question that we tend to tackle is, where else will you replicate the earnings that you're getting from your business to replace it, and at what stage you are in life? And I think when people are of a certain age, probably like me, they may be in a position where they're sort of ready to retire, their children are older, they haven't got the same commitments, and it's different. But if we get calls, certainly from people maybe early 40s, you have to question your motive, or they have to question their motivation for selling, because they've probably built a successful business. They're thinking, oh, it's valued at X, these are the multiples, but they won't be able to replicate those earnings over the next working part of their life. So I think that's point number 1, I'd say.
Yeah, I would just emphasize in that, excuse me, sorry, when you talk about the replication of the earnings, is that if you are a serial entrepreneur, it absolutely may make sense for you to sell in your 30s, 40s, and because that money isn't going to be used seed money for your next business.
Yeah.
Now, with SMEs, some people running SMEs are entrepreneurs and they're serial entrepreneurs, and they want to keep doing that, and they have their next enterprise, idea lined up. However, with a lot of SME owners, they're not. What they're doing is they're a specialist in their field, and therefore their business is around that specialism. So they're not necessarily a natural entrepreneur that are going to do the next thing. So some of them may be saying, well, actually, I will sell my business now and I will go into regular employment if they're younger, because they might just be fed up of running a business, the stresses and strains. But Nigel is absolutely correct that if you have a business that's giving you a very good earnings that you wouldn't get, say, in employment, which again will depend on what you do, this could be your best earnings, and you want to keep doing it for another 10 years or so to do that. So, it's really understanding. That's why we really spend a lot of time with potential buyers to really understand, are they entrepreneur? Are they a specialist? What would they be doing instead? And understanding the opportunity cost of that money.
Now, I was just going to say, I think that's a good point, Nikki. The majority we probably speak to aren't serial entrepreneurs. They're people like you say have run the business, they're a specialist in the field, and that's what they know. But I think the other side of the coin is then just understanding what the remuneration is going to be for your business. And for example, if it hits the magic number and it takes away all that stress, then obviously the balanced argument is maybe to carry on selling. And so if you're getting your 3, 4, 5 million, you can certainly turn that into a decent regular income. So I think remuneration dependent, I'd probably put as a caveat in there.
Indeed. I mean, I was talking to it's actually on the accountancy side. For I spend most of my time in succession planning, but I do have an accountancy practice too, so I do dip in and do business advisory there. And I was talking to one of the accountancy clients this week, and it was absolutely the decision. Her position's different. Her field is in a business that hasn't actually got much of a resale value. But it was a decision, does she close down now and liquidate so that she can, because she's got lots of property in it, and use that to fund her next 30, 40 years? Or, does she still try to, so it's really understanding, you can't just do a snap decision. You need to do a lot of planning. And that's often why we work with the financial advisors at the same time, so that people can go, well, actually, if I got, like I said, 3 million and could put it in my pension pot and take out then an annuity or however else is the advised way to take it out, and that's fine, that sorts me out, great. But if it actually gets 500k, and so you'd still then have to do a salary job or a part-time job or so, it's a very big decision. And some people, after they've worked for themselves for many years, it's a culture shock. It would be a culture shock to become salaried. So next one, that's the first one, the replacement of earnings conversation. That could really be a reason not to sell. So what's the second one that we're going to share with the viewers today, Nigel?
Well, I think it's the outside factors and what the market's doing and what the sort of feedback is, if the timing's right from a sort of a national and global perspective, depending on what level you're at. So, and that's forever changing, and it's also having a little bit of a crystal ball to think, right, what is happening. So, I guess the first point at the moment would be you really got to look at your buyer pool, and you've got to look at the potential buyers, and you've then got to think, are they borrowing? What's the cost of money? Has that changed? And really, it's making sure your broker, whatever the outside factors are, manages to swerve or have sufficient interest away from those factors being affected. So, for example, within certain sectors, certain companies, private equity, there's a lot of companies that have money to deploy. So whilst the interest rates are going up and it will affect some of the buyer pool, there's others whereby it doesn't affect them and they've got a longer term strategy, so that they'll look further ahead. So I'd probably say, that's the first one.
Yeah, so it's finding that optimum peak, which is very difficult because, it's very easy to do with hindsight, but you're never going to be able to do that with hindsight. So it's working out, understanding your sector, talking to brokers in the sector, talking to other people in the sector, what it's looking like with the buyers out there. For example, in the accountancy sector, a lot of the purchases are funded by private equity, and therefore they're not so worried about the interest rates because they've got that pile of capital there ready to purchase the right ones. And so at the moment we're actually seeing the multiples in accountancy practices go a little bit higher at the moment, because there's a shortage of sellers out there, and there's masses of buyers, so it's a really good time. Similarly, there's certain sectors, there's a lot of Middle East money which is trying to replace at the moment, still the main area of money coming in was from oil. So they're trying to replace those sectors, and so they're looking at so there's like entertainment seems to be big events and things. You've got the big golf tournament, Live Golf, things like that. There's a lot of people with a lot of capital that need to diversify and will look at different sectors. So there's really yes, in certain sectors the buyer pool has decreased because they were trying to buy with dirt cheap loans, and those aren't so cheap anymore. So debt funding, debt funding is only going to work for sectors where the margins are really high, and then it doesn't matter with an extra 0.5% on the interest, because if you've got a 20-30% margin, it's not so a problem. But any business that's a 10% margin, forget it.
Yeah, I think the other thing to add is actually also the effect of the outside factors on your own business, and how that affects the figures, and how that affects some of your customer base, your sales, your bottom line, and for that reason that would affect the timing. And there's if you've had several good years and all of a sudden it has dipped, obviously it's not the best time to sell, and so it's better to just have that strategy in place, look at how you can improve the business, speak with your accountants, and get that support to be able to get you back up there. And obviously everybody needs to do it anyway for their business, whether they're selling or not. But obviously if the outside factors are affecting your business, then it's clearly not the best time for you to maximize.
But it's an assessment with some pragmatism, because that every business will go through a scale of going up, and then they will go down, and most businesses will find it hard to get back up again. So obviously COVID obviously affects the majority, but in general that's if you're in the decline. But so it's really getting that balance and being sensible and going, really, can you really turn that back to an upward tick, or actually cash out now? You've got no chance. You need to get out now before the balance sheet and the profit and loss are looking even worse.
Yeah.
So it's really it's doing it with a pragmatic eye, not an optimistic or pessimistic, but just sensible, a balanced view. Okay, so that's 2 we've got. What's our third one, Nigel?
Well, this is often when we're talking to business owners, and normally after we've engaged with them and we sort of started the process, we do ask the question at the beginning. It's really what's their plan after selling? If they've been busy business owners working, really, it's always on your mind 24/7, and it's always there. And so even when you're sort of probably lying on the beach, you drift back to thinking about work and what's happening, or you have to take the odd call, or whatever it may be. So after living the majority of your life like that, to suddenly have a void when it's not there, generally a game of golf and a bit of sport and gardening doesn't actually probably cut it. So I think you need a plan to go forward, and what to do. And even if it's a bit of consultancy in the same field, or if it's, you might have a transition.
Directorships, or
so
do be on charity. You need to fill up your time, because you will have, Nigel's absolutely right, you will be thinking about your business all the time. It's not just about the time that you're sitting in your office. So you need a lot of things lined up. You do not want to, and seriously, there's plenty of examples of business owners that have got stacks of money in their bank, but they've still then had depression or similar, because they've lost a sense of purpose.
And we've seen it firsthand with a good friend of ours, and it's there, and it's a real it can be a real problem. So it is important to have a plan, just a broad plan, but some sort of framework of what the future looks like.
Yeah, not just 4-week world cruise. What are you going to do after that? It's you need something more substantial.
Yeah,
absolutely right. So that's 3 things we've done.
Just to add to that, Nikki.
Yes.
Nikki, sorry, just to sort of come back to that, because as a business owner, you're really you're generally at the top of your organization. You're sort of you're making decisions. People come to you. You're sort of often needed in the business and during transition, and unless you've done the perfect step away. But then for all the phones and everything to go quiet, that's where the void comes from. And so it's really to sort of highlight that, and as I say, that's the reason we mentioned the point.
Absolutely. So we've gone through waiting for the optimum time, which is what the peak part of the market, to understand that, the replacement of earnings, making sure you do have a plan of what you're going to do next. What's our 4th and final one today of reasons why not to sell tomorrow?
The final one is when you're simply just not ready and you're not prepared and you haven't got everything in place. Now, depending on the extent of that and what needs to be done, there's really no point going to market unless you are ready on so many different levels, from all the contracts, the saleability of the business, the personnel, the income stream, whatever it may be. There's absolutely, you won't maximize your price if you're not ready.
Absolutely, up-to-date management accounts. There's nothing worse when we're dealing with buyers and a seller doesn't have the information at their fingertips. It just doesn't create a great impression for the buyer. So you really do need to have absolutely everything ready, and have the time prepared to do that. So those are the 4 reasons. Oh, where are we? Yeah, we're about halfway, so that's perfect. Those are 3 plus a bonus of why not to sell. And now we're going to be going through the reasons why you should sell now, and why you should be picking up the phone to Nigel and say, Nigel, ready, let's do it. So what's the first one that we're going to talk about today on why business owners should be looking to sell today?
Well, it's everywhere, isn't it, Nikki? The technological advances that are happening now, AI, ChatGPT, the amount of different packages there are, and the advancement and the speed of the advancement is frightening. And even the business leaders around the world are sort of requesting that it slows down. So I think we've all got to be very mindful of that. And I was reading something the other day how, and 5 years is probably a long time, but everybody's business model, unless you're in specific sectors, everybody's business model is going to change, and AI is going to change it hugely. So that's one thing I think we've all got to be aware of.
Absolutely. And you need to understand, is your business able to benefit from it and thrive, or is it going to make your business obsolete? So, just even this week on LinkedIn, there's a prolific copywriter who's really a great copywriter, was previously very, very popular. She's not billed a single invoice for the last 8 weeks. Copywriting, they all, lots of marketing teams always try to minimize how much put out to copywriting anyway. So you're already in a decline. And now, literally, so many are trying to replace it with AI. I'm not saying that that is the right thing to do or not, but that is the reality. So you've got, are you going to end up going, well, actually, if you sold today, you might be able to get X. Or actually, if you sell in 6 months, a year, is your business not going to be worth anything, and you've got not going to get anything? you know, even in my accountancy practice, I'm very much, and I'm very open with the team, bookkeeping is not going to be existing in the form that it is in 2 years. It will be completely replaced by AI and software. So, you know, so luckily, you know, there's lots of value added and higher level things that we can provide. So we will just change our mix. But, you know, for if you are only a bookkeeping practice that does everything manually and have not gone on with the times, you know, your time is ticking.
And I think to add to that, where you're in a situation at the moment where you've got active customers, companies, tech companies, they're actually looking at sectors that you would think were really diverse away from what they would normally look at, because what they're buying actually is that customer database to try and convert them onto their tech platforms to be able to sell to them in the new way. So it's fairly, there's a small window at the moment whereby that's the opportunity, but as your customers drift away or they reduce in the amount they spend with you, then it's less attractive. And an example, you know, we're probably looking at more sort of challenged sectors. Say for example, within the print environment, a lot of printers have a good deal of customers where, and tech companies are looking at those to capitalize on that customer database to then gradually make a transition to move them onto the tech platform. So again, that's why before it all kicks in, it's good, and that can be replicated, as you just said, maybe within accountancy, Nikki, it will be challenged at a certain point, as will so many sectors. So yeah, that's a kind of a big threat for us all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you really need to understand how those technology advances are going to affect your business. Okay, we've got 2 more to go. Nigel, what's the next one of reason why I should come today?
You're more the political expert than me. So the looming changing government, I think the sort of the rules with regards to selling your businesses and the tax advantages, it could be on the horizon that they may change. And
yeah, and I think it's just a change. Nigel's referring to us. I'm a prolific questioner on the For the Many pod, which is the #1 political podcast, in my opinion, in the UK. And you will hear the name Nikki Larkin mentioned almost every week. Anyway, so absolutely. So, and we're not saying that the change of government will be bad for businesses, but it's the fear of whether it is. So, and that's why some people just don't want to have to worry about it. And they're thinking, I don't know. I mean, at the moment, I know I've heard lots of senior Labour people say, oh, we're not going to touch CGT. And then I've heard a couple other senior ones say, I think corporate capital gains tax should be the same level as income tax, which therefore would be 45%, which, you know, now you're getting 10%, 20%. Do I want to? So you've got to think, or even if my business is going to grow 10% every year, but if in 2 years' time and I sell my business and I'm going to be taxed because I don't know what the rate's going to be, I'm just going worst case scenarios. If you were taxed at 45% in 2 years' time, whereas if you sold now 10% for your first million, 20% for the rest, well, who cares about an extra 10% growth at that point? It's wiped out by that extra tax that you're paying. So I'm not doing the fear. I'm just relaying the possibilities because, you know, we're not sharing what our particular political opinions are on this, but there is, I mean, we saw this week, didn't we, Nigel? We saw there was a survey done of SME business owners. 1 in 4 are considering selling before the change in government. That's huge. which is really confusing at the moment, because you've actually got a slight slowdown at the moment because people are waiting. Sellers waiting for the interest rates to stabilize, waiting for inflation to come down, but they also got their eye on January 25, which is the latest time the new government could be in, thinking, oh, and he said, but what I think those 1 in 4, sorry to go on hijack now, but those 1 in 4, what they're forgetting is how long it will take to sell. So it's all about thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it beforehand. If they seriously are wanting to sell before January 25, and it's June 23 now, if you're watching live, and if you're watching you know, many businesses will take anywhere between 9 months to 2 years to sell. There will be some instances where it can be sold within 6 months, but that is the minority. Most businesses, if you're looking at the market, you're going through it all. You've got sellers or buyers that are being extremely careful and due diligent. You need to assume 18 months for this sales process. Therefore, now you need to start. Okay, third final one, Nigel, before we finish up for the day. What's our third reason for selling today?
Well, it's the sort of one that is probably quite obvious to us all, but cash is king, and sometimes with all the sort of uncertainty that we've mentioned on this session, it's better to sort of get the cash in your pocket, get that transaction done, start your sort of transition with the new owners of a business. The sooner the better, because as you rightly say, the timings generally it's 9 to 12 months, sometimes longer, sometimes quicker, but the vast majority are 9 to 12 months. And that's with all the things being in place that we mentioned at the beginning. So I think it's important that if you've got a value in your business, know the value in the business, and really you want to try and maximize what you can get out of it. It's better in your pocket, and just to have that certainty.
Absolutely. And what can you do with that now? We all want to think that we're going to be living into our late 80s, 90s, even 100s. The reality is we all know someone that's had a stroke or a heart attack in their 50s or 60s. So you just don't know. So, you can't just keep always waiting for tomorrow. Sometimes it's better. Cash is king. Do what you really want to do. Get your bucket list done. So we're nearly up to our 30 minutes. So I'm just going to quickly summarize. So these are the 3 plus the bonus reasons for not selling now. So it was to consider replacement of earnings. Is it the optimum time for you to sell? Do you have your next project lined up so that you don't have a vacuum? And finally, are you actually prepared for selling? Then going into let's phone up Nigel tomorrow because I want to sell. Oh, not tomorrow, today, because tomorrow's
you can ring me tomorrow, I don't mind.
Absolutely. We entrepreneurs, we work 24/7. So 3 reasons for selling today. Technology advances. If your business is going to be badly affected by them, let's cash out now. Change of government, so that's a bit about the uncertainty of what's going to happen, and also on potential capital gains tax changes, and cash is king. Live your life now. Smell the flowers. Okay, hopefully that's lots of things for you to notice, words, digest, and decide whether now is the right time for you to discuss whether to sell your business, or whether you need to, it could be the thing, well, no, it's not the right time, but I need to become prepared, so I'm going to spend the next year working on being prepared. Super. Thank you so much, Nigel. That was really fab.
Pleasure. Good to see you.
Excellent. So for coming up, Next week, we are speaking to Dr. Nima Pasha. She is an expert in lots of areas. She's an expert in organizational behavior, in relation to diversity, in relation to AI as well. So she's going to be, I think we're focusing mostly on diversity next week, but you never know, she may come in a few bits about the AI effects as well. But it's really, really good stuff, what she lectures on. The following week, we've got, I believe, is going to be focusing upon the technology sector. We've got a packed agenda right up until the end of July. So please do keep tuning in right up to the end of July. August, we're going to have a break, but we will be back with lots of fun things in September. So anyway, for now, have a lovely sunny weekend. Fingers crossed, because we have had the weather warning. And have a great weekend. Cheerio.
Bye.